Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rachel Leidy, and I'm going to be conducting today's training session. Can I get confirmation from someone on the call that you're able to hear me?
Hi, we can hear you.
Yeah, you sound good.
All right, perfect.
Perfect, thank you.
All right, it's 1 o'clock. We may have a couple more folks joining, so I'm going to give it 1 more minute to actually get started talking about the content. While we're waiting, just to let you guys all know that this session is being recorded. So after I end the session today, it takes 1 hour, maybe 1.5 hours. I forget what the time frame is to generate the video, and then you'll get an email. An automatic email is sent out with the link to the recording, so you can watch that whenever you need to. Or you can share that link with other folks at your company and they can watch that. Here I am, I'm displaying my screen. I'm logged into FutureFeed. I want to quickly show you guys the different places you can look for answers or seek help for FutureFeed. Okay, so when I log into FutureFeed, no matter what page I am on, scroll down to the bottom and you'll see 2 links. The first registration link is to, you probably have seen this site because this is where you would have gone to register for this class training 1. This is where you're also going to go to register for the next class training 2. The other link here, 15 minutes with FutureFeed. If you register for this session, it's a recurring session. It happens every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So you only have to sign up once, and then it will be on your calendar every week. I recommend signing up for this meeting series and then joining the weeks that you have questions or you need some help. So this is just essentially I open a meeting every Thursday. Anybody from FutureFeed can join and ask anything FutureFeed related. If you have questions about the tool or how to do something in the application, that is a great place to speak directly to myself and other users of FutureFeed who often share their feedback on how they're using the tool. So that's every Thursday at 1:30 p.m. and it's a 30-minute meeting, even though we call it 15 minutes. It's a 30-minute meeting, and we usually get to talking about CMMC and just the requirements in general. So that's kind of a good discussion. All right. Other areas you can look for help. Okay. If you scroll up to the top right, go to user settings. We have a help center. Go to the help center and you'll want to sign in. If you've not been here before, you will have to create an account. But sign in. This is a FutureFeed website, and it's where we post all of our user guides, how-tos, product information, that kind of information. So if you have a question or need some help, I would visit this site and type your question here. We are revamping this site. It's going to be moving to HubSpot here soon, and because the FutureFeed interface has changed, we're going to be producing some more and publishing some more FutureFeed content here soon. All right, so the Help Center, that's a resource. Another resource you have for learning about FutureFeed or getting some answers, FutureFeed specific compliance management answers, you can check out these getting started guides. So every page has, well, almost every page. There's a couple pages that don't have these getting started guides, but most every section of FutureFeed has these getting started guides here. So right now it looks like I'm in the individual responsibilities RACI subsection. So if I click on this, it's going to tell me about RACI individual responsibilities and, what the RACI model is and what this page displays. If I go up to like, let's see, tools, and I click on on-prem, now I click on it and it's going to tell me everything about the technology, what technology to log, what is an on-prem tool, how to log an asset, what information to fill out. And then if you see this compliance implications tab, this is where I've been trying to provide a lot of, CMMC regulation, compliance related answers or information that we get a lot of these questions from our FutureFeed users. So if we get the question a lot, I'll try to add it into the user guide so it is that answer and that information is available to everyone. Okay. So these getting started guides, it's just going to show you the information for that specific page or sub page that you're in FutureFeed. Okay. So it's think of it as a user guide, but it's only giving you the information that's applicable to where you're at in FutureFeed. Okay. So that's all the sources of kind of if you have questions or need some guidance, need some help, those are all your resources. The last one here is support@futurefeed.co. You can always email support@futurefeed.co for any of your questions, and that would initiate a help desk ticket with FutureFeed, and it will get assigned to the right team to get you the answer. Okay. All right. Now, with that being said, let me quickly just poke into the meeting. I'm on one screen here, so I have to switch back and forth. Looks like a couple more folks did join. For the folks that may have joined a few minutes late, just to let you know, this session is being recorded, and so anything that you missed at the beginning, you can just rewatch that recording. I was just sharing with you all of the resources available where you can go seek out answers. Now I'm going to get into talking about how, to get started with FutureFeed. That's what these two training sessions, training session 1 and 2, there's just a lot to cover. And so we had to break it up into 2 sessions. I'm going to throw a lot at you. That's why we've set this session to record so you can watch it as much as you need. And also you're welcome to attend as many of these sessions as you need. Okay. So once you're done with training session number 1, we recommend that you take what you've learned in the session and apply it in your FutureFeed environment. Go try hands-on doing some stuff in FutureFeed. And once you're ready to learn another chunk of information about FutureFeed, then sign up for training session 2. Or sign up for them both and feel free to attend them as much as you want. The way we designed these 2 classes is one, I'm going to cover the whole interface. I'm going to try to cover and train and talk about every section of FutureFeed. The way I talk about FutureFeed in these sessions is just our recommended approach to populating FutureFeed. I just want to point out that you really can tackle FutureFeed however you want. For example, you could go over here into the assessment area and start, maybe if you already had a system security plan prior to FutureFeed, or if you had some NIST 800-171 basic gap assessment results, you can go into the assess area and start copying those results or documenting those results into FutureFeed, marking things failed or not met, creating POAM items, and then for the things that are implemented, defining how they're implemented and capturing the evidence in FutureFeed. Or if you just want to jump straight in to start logging your technology and the different assets, the IT products that are in your assessment scope, you're going to do that mostly in the tools section of FutureFeed. You could start there. There's no place in FutureFeed that, even though you see up here, there's percentage metrics provided, essentially just saying, hey, there's still some information that's empty or blank on this page, but you don't have to get every page at 100% to move on to the next page, okay? So, as I said, I'm just going to talk about populating FutureFeed and approaching FutureFeed, getting started with FutureFeed, our recommended way, but there's really no right or wrong, okay? As long as you get the information filled out and then start using it to manage compliance and plan for that assessment. Okay, so at a high level, this class and the next class, this is the overall outline, okay? First, we recommend starting at the start area. That's why we titled it Start. So we do recommend when you first get access to FutureFeed, you start here and you start working through all of these sub pages, all these sections to define at a high level your company. You're defining at a high level the system and the system environment, the system boundary. We have a place for you to define the contracts and the cage code or cage codes that are associated with this environment. Then data inventory, this is where you're defining the type of data that's in this environment, if it's FCI, CY, or other sensitive proprietary data. And then you have some settings here. We're going to go over all of these more thoroughly here in a second, but we recommend you start with the start and you provide that high level information, compliance management information. After start, then move on to people. In people, actually, let me start by saying all throughout FutureFeed, there's several places where you can assign responsibility. Okay, if you create a POAM entry for a failure, you can assign that POAM to someone. Documents, you can assign documents to people, teams, or roles. In tools, you can assign responsibility. All throughout FutureFeed, we're using the RACI model. Okay, let me show you RACI model, R-A-C-I. So pretty much everywhere that you can assign responsibility other than the tasks, which I'll show you that here in a second, we're using this RACI model. So R stands for responsible. That would be the person, role, or team responsible for that item. If it's a firewall, they're responsible for configuring it. If it's a document, they're responsible for managing and maintaining that document. And if it's a control or a requirement, they're responsible for implementing that requirement. Okay, so that's responsible. A is accountable. So this is, typically one person, a person or a role that at the company is ultimately accountable and going to be held accountable for things if they don't get done. So this is typically management and management of the people who you have assigned as responsible. They're the person making sure the work gets done. They're accountable. C, consulted. Okay, internal or external. Is there anybody that needs to be consulted on the item? And then I is informed. So is there anybody internal, external that needs to be informed when there's any issues, changes with the item? Okay, so all throughout FutureFeed, we're using that RACI model. Now, if you want to be able to, let me just quickly show you what it looks like in action here. So normally it looks like this. And you'll tag people here. You can tag teams as responsible. You can click on this and identify specific individuals as responsible. Over here, same thing. Accountable, it's just allowing you to tag one person or one role, okay? So if you want to be able to tag your HR team or your executive team, or let's say you have a managed service security provider, you have an external company who's doing incident response for you. If you want to be able to identify them as responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed on something, you have to first define them. as a user or a role or a team that is involved with your compliance management and these requirements. So I kind of went off on a tangent, but the flow is start with start, move on to people, and then start defining your users, the roles, and the teams involved with getting compliant and maintaining that compliance. Okay. And then that's going to set you up for all these other areas in FutureFeed, tools, documents, assess, all this moving forward. When you want to tag something as, or somebody or a team or a person as responsible or accountable, then you're going to be able to do that. Okay. So first you have to define the people involved. All right. After you're done defining people, we recommend then moving on to tools. So you're going to want to have a listing of your IT products or your technologies that are involved, that your company is managing, utilizing, owns, operates. That's part of your compliance boundary. Okay. Unfortunately, at this time, I shouldn't say unfortunately, just at this time, we don't have any add-in capability, or what's it called? API capability, where you can automate asset listing or user listings in FutureFeed. There's no automation there. So it is all manual entry, but once you get FutureFeed set up and you do create all those manual records for your technology or your documents or your people, then maintaining it from then on is easy, because you're not going to have, you know, major changes. Okay, so in here, you're going to want to start adding the technology. And to do that, you just hit the plus button. You define the purpose of the technology, or wall. If it's like a CRM tool, MFA, identification and authentication mechanism. So what is the purpose of this asset that you're logging? So let's call it a syslog server. All right. And then you give it the brand, or I'm not sure if this even makes sense, if there's something like a rel 7 syslog server, but let's pretend it is. And then on-prem. So is it in the cloud? Is it on-prem? Is it externally provided? So that's how you log a technology. Okay. So this is not where you're going to log your complete hardware listing. What I mean by that is, if you have 50 user endpoints that are Windows 11, you're not going to create 50 entries for Windows 11. You're just going to create one entry. And I would do something like mission is user endpoint, you know, desktop, mobile, let's call it a laptop. And then, okay. So you don't have to log 50 assets. You're just logging different technology, different IT products involved. Okay. Now, in the example that I just provided you, the only reason I would log Windows 11 Pro again is if my user endpoints had different configuration baselines. Okay. So if I had Windows 11 Pro, an image of Windows 11 Pro for my developer team who's doing software development and testing, their baseline approved image may be, you know, different than what I have when I deploy an asset to my HR team. They don't need all the bells and whistles that the dev team needs, right? So in that case, then I would log a separate Windows 11 entity, because when you think about that, you could treat them like separate IT products, because they are going to have different configuration baselines and different software, and you know, maybe different policies applied to different OUs or groups. So please interrupt me. I will not be offended. Sometimes I go on tangents, but let me know if I'm not clear or if I need to maybe elaborate a little bit on something. So here's where you're logging your technology. You hit the add button. Then at the very least, to get you started and set up to use FutureFeed, at the very least, after you log your technology, we recommend opening up that entry or record, which then has its own folder storage system here. Everything in this page and all these, everything here relates to this firewall. Okay, so we recommend after you log your technology, open up the entry and then assign responsibility out and accountability out, and then go up here into connect and start linking the requirements that are applicable to this asset. So in this case, it's a firewall. So here I'm going to link all of those controls you see here that I am implementing in my environment. I'm enforcing these requirements in my environment with this firewall. My firewall is controlling and limiting and verifying external connections. It's handling connection termination and some remote access stuff. Other things I would connect to the firewall, it being a security protection asset and needing to, meet those technical requirements, I would also log those. Okay, so like 318 is a good example. Unsuccessful logon attempts. You should apply that to your firewall as well, because you don't want people just being able to get into your firewall management console, right? Okay, so I would apply that control. You could search by control number, as I just showed you here, or maybe we want to search by the word firewall and see what comes up, and you could change the depths of your search. So here I'm searching at the control and title level. Here's the requirement description, here's the objectives, and here's some guidance. So if anything mentioned firewall, it would have popped up, and it doesn't appear so. So let's try access. You can see that a lot more is going to pop up. So you can search by keyword. If you're not sure what requirements to associate, search by keyword. But if you happen to know the control ID, search for that. Okay. So just to be clear, log your people, your users, roles, teams, go over to the tools section, log your technology, open up that technology, assign responsibility and accountability, and then connect it to the requirements. That's like eventually go back and work on filling out all this other metadata and using the task assignments, and I'll show you how that all works here. But at the very least, to get your FutureFeed environment set up and ready to do an assessment or start evaluating your level of compliance and creating POAMs and assigning out tasks and POAMs, then at the very least do this, okay? So tools, log your tools, assign responsibility, connect it to the requirements. Now the exact same thing, you move on to documents. In documents, you're gonna log all your security documents the same way. And then after you log that security document, open it up. And again, assign responsibility, accountability, and connect it to the requirements. Okay, same process. So here I would make sure to connect all of the requirements that are being addressed or supported by this policy. All right, so probably a lot of AU. You can just click them like that, or even add all if I want to. Okay. So documents here, you're going to log all the security documents that your company currently has, policies, procedures, worksheets, SOPs, forms. And then also, if you know your company's missing something, like an incident response plan or just if you don't have like a policy or you need some sort of security document, you'll still log that. It's just going to be logged and then put onto your system POAM. Okay, so for things like that, right? I want you to notice here I'm in documents. I have an active document section. Okay, if I log things here, right? Let me do one quick. Let's see. Personnel security policy, right? So if I log that policy in this active section, that to me means that that policy is approved, it's being enforced, it's already being adhered to. Okay. If I scroll down to the bottom, I have a pending area. So this is where if let's say your company doesn't have an incident response plan, well, you'll still log it because you want to track it and make sure it gets done. So let's incident response plan. But I'm creating it under this section here. So when I add that, I just at the same time created a POAM entry for that. That incident response plan is now going to show up on my system POAM. So anything you log down here, it's a planned deployment. Same thing for tools. Tools has the active. So these are tools and services, technologies that are in production being used. And then down here, these are things that your company is planning to acquire and deploy. So if you're, looking to go into, a GCC high environment or deploy, acquire another GRC or CUI tool, then you would log them here. All right. So after you log your technology, assign responsibility, and link it to the requirements. Then you log your documents, assign responsibility, link it to the requirements, and then go on over to assess. So now at this point, if you've logged people, tools, and documents, and you've connected them to the requirements, at this point, you're going to have some evidence in your assess area. Okay, so what was that one? It was an audit and accountability policy, and I think I connected it to all of the AU controls. So now if I go into my AU control, if I go under the examine area, which is where all my documents, this is all my evidence, my document proof, okay? If I go under there, there's my audit and accountability policy that I connected, okay? I connected 318, the unsuccessful logon attempts. Remember, I connected that to my firewall. Well, where that shows up, not under examine, because examine is only your documents. That's going to show up under test. Test is where your technology shows up once you make that connection between the technology and the requirement. And that's because when an assessor typically tests out a requirement, it's usually done on technology. So that's where FutureFeed has decided to house and identify the technology that is picking up the requirement, but also helping you enforce that requirement. Okay, so under test here, there's my firewall. Now, if I click on this, you're going to see that same firewall layout here where I said responsibility, accountability. There's the connect and there's the controls. Okay. So now if you've connected your tools documents to the requirements, when you get to the assess page, everything's going to be not assessed blue. You're going to have no results in here, but you will have evidence already associated to the requirements. And so at this point in time, we recommend you start building out this assess dashboard here. Start addressing the requirements and finding your gaps and linking additional artifacts and evidence if you need to. I'm going to show you that in the second training session. But after you're done with assess, when you go on to your system security plan now, if you've done a decent amount of work in these first 4 sections, your system security plan is going to have a decent amount of data in it. Okay, as you see here, your SSP, it's displaying your system, the environment, and the requirements. Most of the information that is displayed in this SSP area here is all being captured in another area of FutureFeed. Okay, for example, if I click on this edit button next to this unique identifier, I'm not editing the data right here in this dashboard. It's going to take me to where I originally put that information into FutureFeed. So I click on the edit. Now I'm over under the start scope area. This is where I've defined my, system. So if I edit it there, and I go back to the SSP now, there, that's been edited. That's now my SSP is now accurate, right? Okay, so just know this SSP area here, most of this information is being captured elsewhere in FutureFeed. And all we're doing right here in this SSP browser area is we're displaying a very nice format, easy to navigate system security plan for the purpose of you would review, edit, and approve any data here. You could see how it's going to be displayed in your SSP. And there's a review and approval. We'll talk about that in the next session. So, but you review and approve your data here. So when you know that you go over under deliverables and you run an SSP report, you export your SSP, you know that data in there is going to be accurate because you've done the review and the approval of that data here in this SSP area, okay? So after you're done doing your assessment, review your SSP, and then all throughout tools, documents, and assess, you were creating POEM items for any failures or planned acquisitions, okay? So now the next step is to move on to your FutureFeed system POEM, which is your system POEM here. It's titled Your FutureFeed. So all throughout FutureFeed, when you mark something failed or not met or, pending, it was logged here. These are all my POEM entries then that I made. And now I'm going to start grouping my POEM items into projects, okay? So instead of having to work on 75 individual items, now I'm going to put them together into similar non-compliance or similar work. So here, this is an incident response plan. Remember, I put that on there. We're trying to develop that incident response plan. Let's see. Do I have another document related one? Here we go. I think, oh, here we go. Here's one. So it looks like I've failed on objective B43112, vulnerability scans. The frequency of performing vulnerability scans need to be defined. Okay, so I'm defining something here. So I'm going to click on that one. Now I got a document requirement here and I have a document requirement here. I'm going to hit add to project. And I'm going to either add them to an existing project that I have going on, or I can create a new one if I want. But I already have a security documentation project going on, and I already have a tech writer involved, and they're helping me produce all this documentation. So I'm going to put those two items in there. Okay. So you're going to manage your POEMs. You can manage them individually if you like. You don't have to put them in a project, but it can help reduce the number of different items you have to follow up on. So, here in your FutureFeed, you're going to start working on POEM items and getting them assigned out, prioritizing them, and getting the right people engaged to do the work, and either individually or putting them into a different project and managing out the projects. And then under deliverables, you're running reports, you're producing presentations, and then you can run some other data reports over here and exports. Okay, so all of that's just at a high level. That's our recommended approach to getting started with FutureFeed. Start with start, people, work left to right and fill out the data you can. But at a minimum, cover what I said. So that way, all those interconnections and dependencies and the relationship between your evidence and the requirements is starting to get built out. Does anybody have any questions so far? Okay, so now I'm going to just go over dashboards, start, people, tools, and documents, and we're going to stop there. The next session, I cover assess, SSP, your FutureFeed, and deliverables. All right, and I will skip over some of this stuff. It's pretty self-explanatory. Feel free to stop me along the way if I breeze over anything you have questions on, right? So in this dashboards area, this is where you're gonna see some compliance related metrics and responsibilities listed out. So here we have this nice info, semi-interactive graph here that you can drill down to all the way down to the objective level if you want to see status, and then jump straight to the requirement either in the assess page or your SSP. Over in the assessment prep center, what we're doing here is we've provided you a couple project management tools. Okay, the first one, reviewing. What this is because FutureFeed is, for example, that your SSP, your system security plan is being produced and a bunch of information is being pulled from all over FutureFeed to produce your system security plan. And so if the information is inaccurate in FutureFeed, it's a good possibility that your system security plan is going to be inaccurate. Okay. Also, you want to make sure that your results, the assessment results and the evidence and all of that stuff is accurately depicted in FutureFeed, and it is in FutureFeed. That way, when you move into that C3PAO assessment, your assessment process is going to just be a lot easier. Your assessment time is going to be reduced because when you're sitting in your assessment, as the assessor's asking you questions, you can have your FutureFeed. We recommend you have your FutureFeed environment pulled up. And as you're sitting with the assessor, you're navigating through the different requirements in FutureFeed. And if the assessor asks, well, I never saw that screenshot, or, oh, I don't recall seeing that policy, you can quickly pull them up and show them to the assessor during that meeting. Okay. So this assessment prep center, this reviews all of these. This is a listing of all of the different pages of FutureFeed. Okay. So let me go over here to let's do the CY data inventory. Okay. So this, focus over here on this compliance review box. This box here directly ties back to that last page I was just on. Okay. So this is my CY data inventory. This is where I'm identifying the specific category of CY in my environment. Not everybody at your company may know that. You may only have a couple people who are experienced with, identifying and knowing what CUI is, or what categories of CUI your company is working with. Okay. So maybe I want to assign this page to my data steward or someone at my company who really understands what CUI is and, where it's being stored and processed in our environment and what type of CUI we have. I'm not going to go give that to my HR person. So I'm going to assign this page to my security officer. Let's pretend that's Pam. Okay. Now, Pam, my security officer, who has a solid understanding of the type of CUI data in my company, she has been assigned responsible as for this page, filling out the page, maintaining the page, making sure it's accurate and updated. Okay, and if she wants to log or conduct an official review of this page and the data, then when she logs in, she'll click reviewed. Okay, notice how when I clicked it, it logs my name. So whoever actually clicks it, it's going to capture their name, but Pam would be the one to click it. And then Pam also could approve that page, or maybe somebody else. Maybe you want someone else to approve all of the pages. Okay. So now this whole compliance review section here, let's go back to that other Assessment Prep Center review, if I scroll down now, my CUI data inventory, it's been approved by Rachel Leidy today. So that's all this is you're seeing all of those review boxes for all of the pages in FutureFeed here in one page, and you can assign them out, get them approved, see what the status is. Okay, so you'd probably want to conduct an official review of your FutureFeed environment prior to, providing your system security plan or your POEM to any external assessors or internal management. Okay. Critical dates is just another project planning tool where you can plan out the path to CMMC certification. Okay, so when do you plan on having that C3PO assessment? And if you had any findings, poemable findings, you're going to have 180 days to remediate those and get those reassessed. So you'll have to work towards that 188-day mark. And then after you get your certification, it's going to be good for 3 years. So when do you need to start prepping for that next assessment? So that's how you'd use this page if you want to. And then as you log and check the boxes over here, it creates essentially it just creates a little snapshot of your system security plan. It generates and archives your SSP, so that way you can see throughout the project, hopefully you're going to see an improvement. Here I've gone down, but you'll see your score and the maturity of your SSP throughout the project here. So the next two areas, responsibilities, this is just where you're going to be able to view anything that you have assigned to you as far as RACI, any of the RACI objectives assigned to you, any tasks assigned to you, and any POEMs assigned to you using that RACI model as well. If you're in the business of managing a team, here's where you're going to view all of your team assignments. So anybody you assign something to in FutureFeed, they're going to show up here and be listed. All right, that's the dashboards area. Now let's go over the start real quick. In start, pretty self-explanatory, a lot of this stuff is. So here, company information, just identifying the company. Here we have description. You're defining the company, what is your company's doing, how, kind of highlighting, specifically for DoD and CMMC, this is what we're doing and how we're producing or storing, processing, transmitting FCI or CUI data. You have a place to log any IT or cybersecurity budget your company has, and also log the cybersecurity insurance your company may hold. What does it cover and the coverage dates? All right, locations. So any physical locations that are storing, processing, or transmitting FCI or CUI data, you're going to log those here. Physical locations owned by your company. You don't need, if you're using Microsoft GCC High, you don't need to log the location of the Microsoft data center that your information is sitting at. When you capture external service provider locations, that's going to be captured over here under tools, under service providers is where I would log that cloud environment. Okay, and all assessors do know that the Microsoft data centers are inherited. Shoot, where was I? Locations. Okay, so here, just add new location, fill out the required data, which is in red. And then what you do, hit save, and it will create this location, and it's going to be a very familiar layout here. So all of the assets, all of the locations, all of the technology, and all of the data document assets all have these folder systems, folder structures, where the item is now going to have a place for you to provide more information, connect it to the requirements, track compliance, assign tasks, and evidence. Okay, so here, this is a location entry. These tasks, what you're going to do here is you're going to create tasks that relate to, getting compliant, getting things implemented and fixed, but also you're going to create tasks related to anything you have to do throughout the year, throughout the years. Okay. So, as you probably all are aware, CMMC, these requirements, you don't implement them once and then you're good forever. There's things you have to do throughout the year, like change control board, change review sessions, uh, user access reviews and auditing. You're going to have to do weekly or monthly vulnerability scanning, annual security control assessments, or annual risk assessments. So there's going to be things you have to do throughout the year. Okay, some of those things you know already because it's in the requirement. It says do this every year, but most of them you get to define the frequency and define the processes that need to be conducted throughout the year. But here is where you're defining, so initial tasks as well as maintaining compliance tasks. And it's all related to the item you're in. So here at this location entry, here is maybe I want to set up a, or maybe I need someone at this location, please provide me a listing of all the physical access devices uh, not utilized for this location. You know, so here I'm wanting someone to give me a listing of the physical access devices for this location. Uh, I have a place to be more descriptive, and I'm going to assign it to my physical security officer at this location. I don't know if I actually have something like that, but let's see. I don't have any physical. Let's just pretend. Okay. All right. And this is not, this doesn't need to repeat. I just need this one time. So I'm not going to make it repeat. Hit submit. Now, Nate will get a notification that they have a new task. And when they log into FutureFeed, they'll click on that task and it's going to bring them right to this location here. He'll click on it, and now he could either attach that listing that I asked for, or maybe it's housed on SharePoint, so he'll just give me the link, or he could even type up a complete new listing, maybe if it's not very long, 2 keys, front door, you know, 1 key back. That's very poor. Don't do that in real life. But he could essentially, what I'm saying is when your people want to mark a task as completed, they cannot mark a task as completed without logging evidence. FutureFeed makes them log evidence. And you saw they either have to attach the evidence, link to that evidence, or they could type up and draft their own new evidence, maybe copy and paste some results or a summary report in here or something. Hit save, complete, mark it, sign it. All right. So now note I was in the task assignment, but it kicked me out to evidence because in FutureFeed, every completed task is going to get logged in evidence. So you're going to eventually see a listing of all completed tasks, compliance related tasks. And then not only that, if your assessor wants to see the evidence that that task was in fact completed, you would click on it and it's showing then the evidence. So had I attached a listing or uploaded like a Word document, it would be displayed here and I could click on it. But since I typed it, there's my report. There's the evidence that I did do what I said I did. Okay. So also in the tasks, like I said, you want to create tasks that align with the things that you have to do throughout the year. Okay. This is how you're going to make this is essential. You know, if you're going to use it here, or maybe you have a ticketing system elsewhere, but making sure as a compliance manager, you're going to want to make sure that you have triggers or Yeah, triggers, something to trigger or alert someone when there is compliance related activity that needs to be done. And then capturing that output is essential to showing proof to the assessors that throughout the year you are maintaining your compliance. So throughout the year, we are doing the monthly compliance vulnerability scanning, or the quarterly access requests or access control reviews. Okay, so here maybe at the location, um, as you guys may be aware, there is a requirement where you're going to have to do an annual security control assessment. Okay, there's multiple ways you can design that and deploy it, but here, let's say at this location, I wanted to create a task where every year they evaluate and assess the physical security controls that have been implemented. So let's do an annual physical security control assessment. Um, Assess the 800 171 PE controls, right? Those are my physical security controls. Provide new evidence and or upload new evidence to FutureFeed or mark tasks complete. And then I'm going to assign that to my physical security officer, but this time I want it to repeat every year. Every year it's going to repeat. It's going to start today. It's never going to end, or I could make it end. And then once this is triggered, the person has 7 days to complete that activity or close out that task. Let's give them 5 days, Monday through Friday, to do that assessment and hit submit. And so this is how I'm making my compliance operational, is I'm taking what I've defined as the requirement and creating these tasks related to getting things initially compliant, but then tasks related to maintaining that compliance and supporting your annual assessment requirements as well as your continuous monitoring requirements. Okay. All right, so scope here, this is where you're defining the system. If you want to get an idea of how I would define these systems, I've logged that in the Getting Started guides under compliance implications. Contract, this is where you're logging your company's cage code or cage codes and the different contracts, the DoD contracts, that they have, and specifically what clauses are present in them requiring a level 1, level 2, or whatever other requirements you have. Data inventory, FCI assets, this is pretty simple. Yours is going to be blank. You will have to go under tools and log your technology. Then once you log your technology, you can come back to your FCI inventory. It will list all my technology. And then I'm just going to check which ones are FCI assets or which ones are not. Okay, so that's just a simple toggling things on and off. Yes, that's an FCI asset. It does store, process, transmit FCI data, or no, it doesn't. Your CUI inventory is a bit different. Okay, here we're listing all of the NARA, CUI categories, and you're going to find the one that is applicable to your company, typically over here on the defense category, and pretend that this here is the defense category. You're just going to click the box, yes, I have that data, like that. Okay, now when this tool shows up, where it calls out a specific asset as storing that data, when that happens, that's under your tools area. And what you have to do is you have to go into a tool and under the compliance area, this is a CUI asset. Now, if I click on this CUI icon and I check, just remember here, I'm going to click on General Nuclear. I'm going to click that box. Now, if I go back to my CUI inventory and I go down to nuclear. Anybody see that? Oh, here. So nuclear, general nuclear. See how now it's not a check in the box now, it's actually a tool. And that's just because now if I click on it, I'm saying that this JIRA asset is storing, processing, or transmitting this type of data. So it's up to you. You can just leave the check in the box if you want. That's telling the assessor that somewhere in this environment, general nuclear data is being stored, processed, or transmitted. That's acceptable. Or if you want to go a step further, you can get, even granular and define the specific assets in your environment that are storing, processing that type of data. And then that's when that wrench icon shows up. And if you had more assets, they're all going to be listed here. For example, I think there's up here 9. See how all of these 9 assets here are storing, processing, or transmitting CTI information. So this will help depict that CUI data flow if you want to use it that way. Sensitive data, this is just an area where you can log other data that your company wants to track and protect, HIPAA, employee PEI, confidential proprietary information. You use this page if you want. Some people don't need to. Settings over here, you can integrate your ticketing system with, or you can integrate FutureFeed with your ticketing system. So here you just enable that and then type in the email address of your ticketing system. Where you see this capability then is over here under your FutureFeed. There's a couple places, but I'll just show you one. If you see this email icon here, this mail icon, this is me. If I click on it, I am sending an email for this poem item to my ticketing system. The poem is for MFA related, and here's where I can maybe put additional notes or tasks, task number 1, do this. Okay, so, and then hit send. And I'm sending an email to my ticketing system. So the ticketing system will then add this to that ticket and create a task. However, all that stuff works, right? This is for if you're using other project management tools. You can also export your poem listing to CSV if you're using like, Microsoft Project or any other project management tools that you want to put this listing of poems in. Okay, so that's the start area. People, like I said, you're just get a listing of all the users. And on that list of users, identify the users that you want to have actual access to FutureFeed. And then identify the users that they don't need to be able to log into FutureFeed, but you want to log their name into FutureFeed, so that way you can identify them as responsible, accountable, consulted, or informed, right? But they don't need access to FutureFeed. So you do have to be an admin. Your admin will add new user, okay? And this is what I mean. If you want to basically say, let's say John Smith is my CEO, okay? But I don't want, my CEO is not going to log into FutureFeed and manage any compliance related tasks or anything, but I do want to be able to tag him as accountable by name for some things. So I'm going to just no access and hit save. Now I've just logged that person in here. Now I can go over to roles, go under CEO, and then find the new person that I logged. Okay. So get a listing of your users. You'll want to know which users you want to actually set up FutureFeed accounts for so they can log into FutureFeed and manage and close out tasks and manage items. And then, just those other individuals that you want to be able to tag as responsible, but they don't need to log in. Same thing. Roles, define all the roles at your company and all the roles at any external service providers that you're engaged with. You're going to define them here. And once you add a new role, you define the role, you can describe it if you want, and then scroll down to that role and then just assign the person to that role. You can have a default accountable role. So anywhere you see that RACI model being used, You can set a default accountable person here. I would recommend doing that. You can change it individually as you assign out responsibility. Over here, teams, this is where you're creating teams, okay? So just add new team, define your team, and then start adding members to your team. After you create your team, click on add members, and now you can add roles to your team or people to your team. And you can also make someone a team leader, okay? Let's move. All right. All right, then after people, tools and documents. What you're doing here, I think I pretty much covered it. Get a listing of your technology, get a listing of your security documents, and then start logging them. Open up the entry, okay? Fill out as much data as you can. That definitely is the goal, and use what fields you want to use. But to get started, like I said, fill out responsible and accountable, and then get the item connected. Okay, in the next session, I'll cover leader, followers, and a few other things, and then start creating tasks. So you'll see here I have an audit and accountability policy, and it looks like I've created a quarterly audit and accountability events listing review, right? Okay, because what control requirement number is that? I think it's 333, AU 333. You have to have an audit events listing, and it has to be reviewed. Okay, so task is really important. And you get to decide where you want to create the task. Here I created this quarterly review under the policy, but maybe I have a procedure. Maybe I have a events listing audit events listing review procedure. Then I would have created that task under the procedure. So if my users, as they were completing the task, if they needed to revisit that procedure, they could over here. Okay. So with that is where I'm stopping today. In the next session, I'll cover assess, SSP, and FutureFeed, and I will answer any questions that you guys may have from, doing the work in this first few sections. Feel free to ask them in the next session. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Does anyone have any questions, comments? I know I'm 2 minutes over. Any feedback, anything like that? Okay, well, thank you all for your time this afternoon, and I will talk to you all in the next session.
Thank
Bye.
you.
You. Bye.